afternoon, everyone. A warm welcome to day two of PHARMASTEER 2026. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us today. And I feel extremely proud to say that this pioneer virtual orientation program, which is organized by AstraZeneca in collaboration with Department of Pharmacology and Therapeutics, HGS Medical College and KEM Hospital, Mumbai, is receiving great appreciation this year as well. With that, I, Ashish Kumar Dubey, Manager Medical Excellence from AstraZeneca, would like to welcome you all once again. I hope you had a great time last Saturday with topics related to medical affairs role in the industry. And without any much delay, let us jump directly onto the first topic of the day, which is ethics in publications. And for that, we have with us Dr. Sharmila Jalgaonkar, Professor Additional, Department of Pharmacology and Therapeutics, SAGE GS Medical College and KEM Hospital, Mumbai. Dr. Shamila is a professor additional at SAGE Medical College and KEM Hospital, Mumbai, and associate editor of PubMed Index General of Postgraduate Medicine. Chairing the Zinova Hospital Ethics Committee since 2022, she brings 8 years of prior IEC leadership, including member secretary and executive secretary roles. An NMC recognized resource person and GSMC FAMO faculty fellow. She is MUHS approved speaker with 21 years of undergraduate and 17 years of postgraduate teaching. With 45 original papers, 4 reviews, and 10 awards spanning neuropharmacology, research ethics, and drug utilization, she blends rigorous scholarship with impactful mentorship. With that, please join me in welcoming remarkable Dr. Shamila on stage. Ma'am, over to you.
Thank you for the kind introduction. I will just share my slide.
Sure, ma'am.
Okay. Is it visible?
Yes, madam.
Yes,
Please
ma'am,
go
it's
ahead.
visible.
Yeah. So good afternoon to everybody who is present on this platform, and I want to thank you, Dr. Sandhya Kamath, Madam, Dr. Padmaja, Madam, and Ashka Zedika for providing me this opportunity to talk on this forum. So the topic that is given to me is ethics in publication, and what I will be covering in this topic will be this. That is, I will start with why we want to publish, then what are the types of the misconducts that occur in publication, important type of the publication, plagiarism, then fabrication, falsification. We will discuss some authorship issues, and then in the last we will just summarize how to identify and avoid this misconduct at the same time. So as a academician, when I want to publish, the main aim is I want to disseminate my work to the community and validate the research finding for the research that I have conducted. At the same time, I want some respect from my peers, and it also provides me an opportunity to apply to funding agencies, because if I have then research in that particular area, then I have high chances of getting the funding, ICMR or prestigious funding for that particular research area. This is what my thing is there. But I suppose all the participants are mostly PG students and from a different background. So you'll be acting as an MSL in the pharmacy for the pharmaceutical company, and you are the key link between the pharmaceutical industry and the healthcare professionals. So when you are acting as a link between these two, then the most important uh, goal that you have in mind is that you want to promote the product that is there from the pharmaceutical industry, and you want to disseminate as critical information, that is important information of that product to the healthcare professionals. The publication in the very good journal, which has a high impact, also give visibility to that particular product which you want to promote, and also help healthcare professionals to take decisions regarding knowing that what are its safety, what are its risks. And ultimately, why we are doing this? Ultimately, we want the welfare of the patients. So if you have all this information, all this connection in between all of us, it will help us to build the trust with the patients. And that is what a ultimate goal is. So when we talk about any publication, there are few stakeholders are there, authors are there who submit it to the editor. Editor then send it to the reviewer, and then reviewer then review it, and then ultimately after some time it get published. So all the stakeholders are there, and at some point of time, at this each and every stakeholder level, some of the ethical issue can take place. But I will be, talking from the perspective of the authors only. So what misconduct can happen from the author point of view, and how that can be avoided, what precautions can be taken, that we can discuss. Just let us start with some very good examples. So I have taken this example from the retraction watch site, and if you go into the retraction watch website, you will get like these examples. So all of you know the rofecoxib. The rofecoxib was marketed and then withdrawn. So in some 1999 or something, this drug was marketed, and at that time it was said that it is a very a safe drug to be used for any condition like rheumatoid arthritis or osteoarthritis for its painkiller property. After that, in 2000, so again a follow-up study was conducted for this particular drug to find out the gastrointestinal side effect of this particular drug in comparison to the naproxen. The results of the studies were published in a very good journal, and it was reported that the gastrointestinal side effect for this particular rifocopsics are less. But at the same time, there was some very glaring finding was there that there is a five times risk in the of the myocardial infarction. So this was a study which was published in 2000. So this raised the eyebrows ki how it is how this marketed drug in the 99 and how this particular side effect did not come into the picture. So the investigation was done, and it was found out that a first study that was done for the safety and efficacy at that time for this particular drug, actually three myocardial infarction reports were there, or data as per the data, but that were not revealed in the at that time of in publication. So again, an investigation happened, and afterwards, proper action was taken against the Merck, and this particular molecule was withdrawn. Even the publications were withdrawn, which were pertaining to this. So this can be percussions of any publication if it is not done properly with a proper mind. So, as I said, the option watch, if you go, you will find the recent news about which articles are withdrawn and all that. And this is one of the study which have done. They have used this as cite the data, and they have published from 2014 to 2022 how many retraction have taken place. And you can see that number of retraction have increased considerably from 2014 to 2022. So in the same article, they have given the reasons for the common reasons for the misconduct or retraction that had happened. So as you can see, plagiarism is the most common reason, followed by the data issues, which could be falsification, fabrication, and then the duplicate publication. So these are the common reasons for the retraction and misconduct. But apart from this, you cannot neglect the authorship issues that happen, which are actually the sensitive issues that happen when you talk about the ethical issue in the publication, and conflict of interest also is one of the issues that we can discuss at the last. So let us go through one of the all of those issues in the very brief in a short period of the time. So because plagiarism is the most common one that happen, and usually MD students usually also are writing the thesis at that time may happen to do the plagiarism. So what is plagiarism? It is just taking the somebody else's text and using it as your own. So it could be a direct copy paste of entire of that paragraph or entire from the one source only. Okay, or it could be from different sources. Small things are taken, and this is then called as the patchy type of the plagiarism or mosaic plagiarism. So whatever it is, whether it is taken from one source or different sources, it is bad only. So this is one of the example which is you can see on the slide that it can be called as a direct plagiarism, because the most of the entire paragraph has been taken from the one source only, and just a one or two words might have done here and there, and their own paragraph has been ready. Again, if you go to the literature, you will find many such examples wherein plagiarism has occurred, and because of which articles have been retracted. In India, also, a lot of plagiarism cases have come into the picture. In Indian Journal of Critical Medicine, one article was published, and after that, which was in 2023. And in 2024, one of the scientists, he raised the concern that this particular article that is published, they have taken my data and they have published it at their own. So author said that, okay, we will withdraw this article because there are major errors in data. But because this was a concern raised by one of the scientific person, this led to the investigation. And once these investigations are done, they are done at the editorial level. Editor that does its own. They can go to the institution to find out the reason. So institutional head is also involved. So all this happened, and after this, it was found out this was really a plagiarism. And then editor himself put a note and retracted the article saying that we have changing the reason that it is not due to the data errors, but it is due to the plagiarism that we are retracting the articles. So what are the consequences of the plagiarism? Yes, it can disrepute you as a scientist, and that is the most major concern. But at the same time, you are giving the data which is another person's, and it's a very sensitive issue. Another thing is, many times you feel that I can use my own publication, whatever I have done previously, and use it in my next publication, which is called as a self plagiarism. Okay, and this thinking that it's my own, what will happen? Okay, but it is also ultimately plagiarism only. So it can be duplicate or redundant, like republishing in the same findings in the multiple papers or sending it simultaneously to 2 to 3 papers at the same time. Salami slicing, like fragmenting one study into the multiple smaller papers to inflate the output, or overlapping publication. Publish significant portion of previously published work, but also with some new data. Just add one or two objectives new and then add that data to previously published paper. And then text recycling. These are the common. I have given there. If you go into the literature, you will find many types of the this particular salami slicing. But I have taken this from the COPE guidelines, and these are the common one. So are they always wrong? Or in which situation you can say that, okay, I can do duplicate or salami publication? So let us take example of the one conference proceeding. So you have gone to conference and you have submitted the abstract, and that abstract is so sometimes they publish it as a one page report or something. Okay, so and that then will be available online. So when you publish to any when you are publishing it as an original article to any journal, at that time you have an option of revealing that whether you have submitted to previous journals, whether you have published it anywhere else, or whether you have presented it somewhere. So at that time you can reveal that you have presented it at this particular platform and it was published as an abstract. So this could be one of the situation where duplicate publication can be accepted. What about the salami publications? Are they accepted? Okay, so let us take an example like supposing I want to do a study of effect of the vitamin D on all the lab parameters. So when I talk about the lab parameters, it could be blood parameters, it could be LFT, it could be RFT. Okay, these are various lab parameters. Now I imagine that no, I want to have my number of publications increase. So what will I do? I will publish the blood parameters ka data separately, LFT ka data separately, RFT ka data separately. This is not acceptable. Okay, this is not acceptable. But if you have a different objectives, like one is questionnaire based or one is the descriptive one, which are not related quite to each other. So then at the time you can think of publishing it separately, but you should have a strong reason. Most of the time if you have too many objectives, so in that too many objectives, few objectives which are not related to the previous objective, they can be published separately, but you should have a strong reason for that, and you should know ethically why I am publishing this separately. So yes, it's not always black and white. Okay, most of the time salami publications are wrong, but there can be some uh, different situations wherein it can be maybe accepted. So yes, plagiarism, how can it be taken care of? Paraphrasing may be done, okay, or usually done. So is paraphrasing accepted? And what is paraphrasing? Paraphrasing is basically you use your own word, and instead of just copy pasting from another source, you use your own word and then uh, put your own ideas and write that particular concept. So that is paraphrasing. And in the medical writing, it is accepted most of the time, yes. But it has to be done intelligibly. Okay, you cannot just paraphrase by just changing few words or changing few of the sentences, and then all that cannot be done. Instead of that, the most acceptable way of paraphrasing is you can use think in your own ideas, write it down, okay, and take the help of the different softwares to just you know make it very better. And I know there are different all of you must be aware of the different softwares that are available for the identifying the paraphrasm. Like Authenticate is there, which is commonly used by the publishers. They use this software very commonly. Turnitin is there, which is used very commonly by the uh, scientific people. I myself use Grammarly because I think my English is not good, so it helped me to uh, correct the grammatical mistakes also, and it also gives me some ideas about how to paraphrase the sentence. But again, that paraphrasing is whatever paragraph that is given, so then I have to go through that paragraph and I have to see whether it is coming properly or not, or it is conveying what I want to convey or not. So these softwares are there to identify the plagiarism, but at the same time they can be helpful to you as well. So what happens when you put it in the this is one just online plagiarism checker is there. If you put into it some of the paragraphs, then you will get a report. Ki this many percentage of the paraplagiarism is there, plagiarism is there, and you have to these many sources are there from these sources plagiarism has been done. So what percentage of plagiarism is then accepted? Most of the sites usually give their own percentage. Okay, so if you give on Turnitin site, they will say that 0 to 15% is okay, which shows white. Then in blue, when the color coding also there. If blue, if it is there, then some 25% is there, which is okay. Then from yellow to red, it becomes, then it is not acceptable. Then it's a higher level of the plagiarism is there, and that should be avoided. Okay, but if you send it to the publishers, for any journal from the publishing, each journal has their own, but the acceptable level is up to 15%. Okay, and I remember I had submitted to one journal, and they at the proofreading level, not at the initial level, at the proofreading level, they said ki, your plagiarism has a 15% index of the plagiarism, so kindly make it to 10%. So I wanted to change it. I had already done it. Uh, by submission only, that there should not be plagiarism. I have taken that particular efforts, but now reducing it to the below 10%, uh, I had to take a lot of efforts, and then again I had to tell them that I could do only 11% because methodologically, some methodological aspects are there. They cannot be changed because if I change those methodology aspects, the meaning will be changed, and then it will not, what I want to convey, that will not be conveyed to the readers. So that type of the explanation was given. But yes, you have to abide by what uh, journal are telling. If they tell you that it should be 10%, you should abide by that. And before submission only, you have to read carefully the instruction to author section, what are their instruction, and accordingly your manuscript should be there. So this was all about the plagiarism, lot of things, because it is the most commonly occurring misconduct uh, by all of us. So let us go to the another part of the misconduct called as the fabrication and falsification. So there are these two figures are there. So can anybody tell me which one is fabrication and which one is falsification? You can put in your chat box. Can we have their answers in the chat box, Dr. Ashish?
Niro, please see if there are responses. Can you put them across here?
Yes, yes.
Can you see that? Have it. Okay, let us. Yeah, so let us see the first table and the second table, the difference. One is the falsification and another is the fabrication. So if you see falsification is you have a data, but at the same time you feel, okay, if I give this data for the publication, then maybe because my results are not giving significance, they will not, give impact in the scientific community. So you want to change little bit. You feel it is so small, what will happen? So you change it. And while in the fabrication, you do not have data only. Okay, supposing 10 patients का data तुमने लिया, अपन 10 patients का तुम्हारे पास है ही नहीं, but at the same time you want to publish for the some 20-25 patients का data. So at that time you fabricate or just put some figures and make the data for the 20 patients. So that is the fabrication of data. So fabrication is data is not there, you are doing it on your own. So which one is bad? There is no argument regarding fabrication is bad or the falsification is bad or the plagiarism is bad. Three of them are bad. Falsification and fabrication are equally bad and should be avoided. So again, there are cases wherein because of the falsification and fabrication of the data, the papers have been retracted. Like take this example of the oncology study wherein they want checked in lung cancer combination of the paclitaxel with some another drug, and there they give the data for the ORI like PFS. So in that study, it was found that whatever data they have submitted, there was some discrepancies of the data that were noted by the esteemed reviewers. So they asked for the raw data from the authors. And when they asked for the raw data, they found that there are some, data is not very good. So at that time, then the authors were told, this data is not good, so you have to give us explanation. And explanation was not a satisfactory one, so the article was retracted. Similar thing happened with this herbal drug, which was used for this particular endoplasm, this particular study, and in that also the data source was not, the authors were not able to produce the data source, and hence it had to be retracted. So one thing that I want to emphasize is that when you are publishing, you before publication only ensure that your data or raw data sheet is very well. It's all clean. You can answer each and every part of your result with the raw data, because publisher or reviewers can ask your raw data anytime if they want clarification for anything. Okay, so that is one way of identifying the data falsification or fabrication, that asking the raw data from the authors. But are there any other ways of identifying the what are the there are ways by which you can identify whether it is a fabricated or falsification data? So there are tools are available. If you are thinking that reviewers are using this tool, you are very right. They are using for the high-end journals, they are using these tools to identify what is wrong with data. Cream is there that gets granularity related inconsistency of means. So they checks if reported means is possible or not. Creamer is there, which add ST. So they check mean as well as the ST. While Sprite go at the higher level, they will reconstruct the raw data, their own raw data, and check if this raw data is possible or not. So these types of the software or testing tools are available to find out if the data is fabricated or falsified. So again, once again, this should be falsification of the most of the time we get very tempted to for the falsification. Fabrication is, I think, criminality, but falsification at our level may be lead to the because of the temptation, but should be avoided. So that was the fabrication and falsification. Now coming to the another issue of authorship. This I would consider as a very, very sensitive issue, because most of the people that are involved or who is involved in the research want the acknowledgement or credit for whatever research that is being published. And most common type of the authorship issues are ghost authorship, gift authorship, or the coercive authorship. So coercive authorship basically mostly occurs in the academic setting, like where hierarchy system is there. Like I am a guide, so I will tell my student, okay, your thesis is there. Put my name first and your name as a third, because I want authorship, or sometimes I would publish his own. I may publish his data as making my own. So this is a coercive authorship. But in the pharmaceutical industry, ghost authorship and the guest authorship is very, very common. And they usually go hand in hand. Like it's a very common known fact that most of the pharmaceutical industry hire resource people to write the publications. So they then becomes ghost authorship because they are paid. Usually we don't bother about that. But many times it may happen that the junior person may write the article and then the only senior people will take the credit for the author in the authorship, but at the same time they will want some other person to be included, which is an honorary person. And this is called as the guest honorary authorship to somebody who will give credit to that particular publication, and it will be, some glamour to that particular publication. So, these things happen a lot, and there are some incidences wherein, because of this particular, in authorship issues or other issues, these uh, products have been retracted from the market. Take the example of the uh, neuropenin, that is the gabapentin, and this gabapentin is basically marketed for neuropathic pain. But when the pharmaceutical company, which is the Park and Davis, they are a subsidiary of the Pfizer, and they wanted to again promote it for off-label use in the various other pains like the migraine and some other pain. Okay. So that's why when this publication of its use in other pain was made, at that time they requested some of the neurologists to be author in this particular study. Now this neurologist has never been in the study that was conducted for the migraine or other type of a pain, and they have never been a part of this particular study, but their names were put in this particular article, and then it was published. So afterwards it came into the picture, of course, and this particular issue was again put into the by FDA, and it was found out that guest authorship was offered to some of the neurologists, and it was wrongly promoted for some other pains, and then actions were taken against the culprits. So this is what happened, and even the large amount of the fine had to be paid, and disreputation was there. Same thing happened with the Redox, which is fenfluramine for the weight loss. It was promoted as a weight loss. So ghost authorship, gift authorship, again, are the very common in the pharmaceutical industry. You will find a lot of examples related to it. Again, a wrong thing to do. Then what is the, then how will you avoid this issue of the authorship? Always follow guidelines, always. Individual journals also give you guidelines, ki what are the authorship criteria. And ICMG, that is International Committee of the Medical Journal of Editors, also give us guidelines that what are the. So substantial contribution is a very, very important word. You should follow that. And if too many authors are there, you can put them in the, which occur in the pharmaceutical company. You can include all of them as an co-authors. So these are the guidelines. One is the COPE guidelines, Committee on Publication Ethics. Then there is a World Association of Medical Ethics. Then there's ICMG guidelines, and even ICMR has some 25 pages the booklet of integrity and publication ethics. So to summarize, what are the do's and don'ts when you talk about the ethics in publication? Enlist all the authors who have made significant contribution. Do not give guest authorship, gift authorship, or ghost authorship. Report the data honestly and accurately. Do not fabricate and falsify. Give the proper citations. Do not plagiarize. Submit to one journal at a time. And you should address conflict of interest or reveal the conflict of interest. And wherever possible, take proper permission wherever copyright is required. So yes, this was all about what misconduct can happen in the publication and how you should avoid. And basically, one thing that I want to say is, do not do any type of the misconduct. Be honest. Know the integrity. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you. Thanks a lot, Dr. Sharmila ma'am, for first of all for being here with us today and for that insightful and amazing talk. Thanks a lot for that. We do have a couple of questions from the students too. And my first question to you, Dr. Sharmila ma'am, would be, uh, I know that there are a lot of emerging technologies, innovations that are coming across with now AI coming into picture. How do you see the future of publications evolving with the integration of AI into it?
Okay, thank you very much for that question, because I wanted to include one side related to that. But all of us are aware that AI plays nowadays a very important role in the manuscript writing also. And most of the authors are taking the help of the AI for manuscript writing. But when you want to submit to the journal, nowadays even journals are making very aware of that, and they usually ask question while submission only, ki how whether you have taken the help of the AI for the publication, and how much AI has been used for your publication. And whatever those tools I told you, Authenticate, Turnitin, in that all those have been updated now to identify that how much AI related you know uh, uh, c- aspect is there in that particular manuscript. So though yes, AI will be there, we cannot deny it, but still we have to have ways to tackle it
Thanks a
and
lot, ma'am.
go in a
Yeah.
hand in hand with the AI.
Thank you so much, ma'am. I know I have overshooted the time, but I still would want your comment onto one more important question which came from the students. And the question is, what steps professionals take post publication to maximize the reach and influence of their research findings? Maybe would request if you could quickly share your thought around that as well, ma'am.
So to increase the visibility of the research findings, right, after the
Yeah.
publication. Okay.
Yes.
So, first of all, we can use the platforms where you can upload your research publications. Like we have a research kit like platform. Okay. So I upload my publications over there. So it gives more visibility. So you can do that. Okay. And most important thing is try to publish in a very good journal, which has a good high impact factor. So it will improve the visibility.
All right. Thanks a
Does
lot,
it?
ma'am. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Thank you so much, ma'am. As I said, thank you so much for being here with us today, and to the audience for amazing questions, and to Dr. Sharmila, ma'am, for equally amazing responses. Thank you so much, ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
With that, let us steer ourselves to the next session, and which is scientific exchange excellence. And to take that, we have with us Dr. Kirtan Bhatt, therapy area lead, breast and GOGYN cancers. Dr. Kirtan, a seasoned oncology leader who has driven therapy area strategy and excellence and cross-functional execution across markets. With over a decade in medical affairs and clinical development, he has led national and international oncology portfolios spanning breast cancer, lung cancer, immuno-oncology, and has overseen local study operations, evidence generation, and medical governance as approved signatory. His foundation as a clinical research physician and earlier service as frontline medical officer covering emergency ops and community health brings rare patient first perspective to complex cancer care. With that, please join me in welcoming Dr. Kirtan on stage. So over to you.
Thank you so much, Ashish, for that kind introduction. I'm not sure if all of that was deserved, but thank you. I'll take it as compliments. Thank you. What I'll do in the next 20 minutes or so is uh, maybe a few slides on what this scientific exchange means, what are the different pillars that we use in pharma industry, and maybe then I'll give an example through which we can highlight this scientific exchange. I don't have too many slides. It's only 7 or 8 slides. I expect to complete in the next 20 minutes. And then if we have any scope for questions, happy to answer them. I'll just share my screen. Ashish, if you could confirm if you're able to see my screen.
Yes, it's
We
visible
can
now.
see the screen. Yes, sir.
Thank you. So, what I did was these days a lot of AI is being talked about, right? And I tried to search what is the definition of scientific exchange, but I couldn't find any. So I asked the GPT, and it gives me this information that scientific exchange refers to, first of all, non-promotional peer-to-peer sharing of information of data, knowledge, which is between researchers, clinicians, and other stakeholders to advance our scientific understanding. The key element of this is that whatever data we exchange, we keep patient at the center of it, and how we are able to improve patient care should be our motto while we are exchanging this information. So just to highlight again, non-promotional peer-to-peer interaction is the essence here. What are the key attributes? or features of this scientific exchange, it has to be objective and evidence based. There is no subjectivity, and whatever data we present must come from the reputed journals, as ma'am was quoting a while ago. It has to be bi-directional and critical. For example, if I am sharing some information, it could be critiqued as well, just like how we do journal club criticisms of various journals, while we are studying our post-graduation or in academic setup. It has to be non-promotional and compliant with the local laws and regulations. And as I said, it has to keep patients at center. So one of the key models that is followed generally in pharma, and I think this could be imbibed elsewhere as well, is that this scientific exchange model. Uh, and I would probably want to talk of an example where, let's say, as an MSL, you are expected to go have an interaction with an expert who is probably a clinician. Okay, so how do you go about this? There are various steps. The first step would involve how well you plan. By planning, I mean that do you know your audience here? While I was preparing for this talk, it was important for me to know who is the target audience. So similarly here, it's very important to know who you are going to speak to. What is their background? What have been their qualifications? What are their interest areas in terms of research, for example? And maybe so on. So many other things that you could find out. So it's important to plan well. Also inform them well in advance that, okay, I will be coming and meeting you to have this interaction. The second most important pillar is that while we have an interaction, we are also able to strike that rapport with that person or the audience, that so that we are able to have an open and bi-directional interaction, right? Uh, how do we go about it? Again, there are 4 steps. We present the data as they are. When we present the data, there would also be questions. These questions could be on the data, uh, the way they were planned to be analyzed, the way they were analyzed, or the way they are represented, right? Those kind of questions could come, or there could be other additional questions as well, which we can, if we can answer, we answer then and there, or we can always go back, read, and come back. That's the second part. Building and maintaining rapport. If you see the there are 7 steps here, but the second bubble is the largest one. And this actually talks about maintaining rapport throughout the interaction. When I say throughout the interaction, it's from the beginning to the end. Okay. Why this element is very important is that whenever I am exchanging information with somebody, that person should also feel that I am a credible source or a trustworthy source. How do you build credibility or trust? By doing consistently what you say you will do. You end up doing that, and that too in a very timely manner, right? So these are some of the very essential elements of scientific engagement model. Lastly, uncover current thinking, which means that you might be presenting a very new concept to the clinician or the larger clinical community. It may or may not be in line with their current practice. So how do you try to understand their current practice and also bring in your point as to why whatever you are presenting makes sense in their current practice, or it will impact their future practice, right? I'll give an example in the subsequent slides to understand this better, but for now you can remember that these are the various elements. The next would be confirmation and follow up, which means that there could be some questions which you are able to answer, or there could be some questions you are not able to answer. So you always follow that up towards the end of your interactions, that these are the points that we discussed, and you needed more information on some other points, which I will come back to you with. And then you analyze as to whether the whole of your planning went as you had thought of, or you would do something better next time when you do that interaction. Now, again, I want to highlight that this could be a one-on-one interaction. It could be an interaction of one to many, or it could also be many to one, right? So these are various steps, a bit theoretical, but when we look at the example, you might be able to relate to this better. So what does an MSL do? I'm pretty sure you all are very well aware that when you ask somebody what's an MSL, and this is the I mean, in interview also, when we ask people, I often keep hearing that we are a bridge between the company and the the external world, which is in loose terms is true, right? So what we do as MSLs is gather insights from external stakeholders. These could be clinicians or the larger healthcare professionals, which are beyond clinicians as well, and then share this back with your organization so that you are able to strategize better. Okay. To the external expert, what do you bring that they feel comfortable and ask you in asking you questions or express their opinions? You also are seen as a trusted scientific partner, which I highlighted earlier. Their needs are being addressed when they talk to you, and they also have timely access to information. So this is a very critical element of building trust with anybody, that uh, or credibility, right? And similarly to your organization also, you bring various benefits. Now, I'll take an example of this particular trial. This was a phase 3 trial done with one of the newer oral selective estrogen receptor downregulators called camizestrant. In this trial, what they did was they took the patient population of estrogen receptor positive, HER2 negative advanced breast cancer. All the patients had to have received standard of care, which is aromatase inhibitors in combination with CDK4/6 inhibitors. There are various types of CDK4/6 inhibitors like palbociclib, ribociclib, abemaciclib. So this had to be their initial therapy because that's the standard of care. And the patients had to have exposure to this for at least 6 months. Okay. Now, if you look at any breast cancer or sorry, for that matter, any cancer trials, how do you assess an outcome of this trial is by assessing progression-free survival or overall survival, basically survival outcomes. How do you assess these? The patients are subjected to series of imaging. Again, the protocol would define whether the imaging has to be done at every 8 weeks or every 12 weeks or every 16 weeks, depending on what kind of tumor you are dealing with. That's the standard practice of assessing outcome of an oncology trial, that you want to subject the patient to imaging. If you see that the lesions are increasing, that's when you term the patient as having progressed, and then you change the treatment. But in this study, what they wanted to do is that while you are also doing those imaging to assess the outcome of the patient, before that they also started testing for this mutation called ESR1 mutation. This mutation is seen in the alpha domain of estrogen receptor, and it leads, if there is a presence of this mutation, which means that it makes the patient resistant to aromatase inhibitors. So basically, uh, if you have exposure to aromatase inhibitors, sooner or later you are likely to develop this ESR1 somatic alteration. Okay. What they wanted, again, I'm highlighting that what they wanted to do was, if there was a presence of ESR1 mutation, which may or may not have occurred along with the radiological progression, they would switch the treatment to some other experimental treatment. So basically, the randomization was done at a point when ESR1 mutation was detected, okay, to receive either camizestrant plus continuation of CDK4/6 inhibitors plus placebo, versus continuing the same treatment. Don't change the treatment even if there is CDK4/6 inhibitors, even if there is emergence of ESR1 mutation. So what is new here is that the concept of trying to detect the progression molecularly by doing a blood test and not relying on imaging, and then you see what are the outcomes. Okay, like if you switch the treatment, will the outcomes be better? Or if you don't switch the treatment, that also works or not. So that was the basic premise. So this is a completely new concept which has not yet been introduced. Okay. So this is the one question, like let's say if I go out and discuss about this trial, then the most important question that I'm likely to get is, why should we test? Because our treatment is working fine. The lesions are not increasing. Patient is clinically doing fine. And you are telling me that if I do a blood test and if I find this molecular marker, uh, I should change my treatment, right? So that's one question that I need to answer as an expert of this clinical trial. Okay. The second question which I'll face, which is there on the next slide, is they had to screen 3,300 patients on this trial to randomize 315 patients. Okay, so again, highlighting that after 6 months of exposure to standard of care, they tested every patient for emergence of ESR1 mutation at every 2 to 3 month interval. Some of the patients, they returned a positive test with the first test itself. Some others were tested positive between 2 to 5 tests, and then later some of them tested much later. So basically, what I'm trying to tell you is this uh, this in this example, uh, they had to test the patient serially for about 5 to 6 times, even if there is no radiological progression, and change the treatment. So which means you need to test so many times for a patient in which there is no progression. Obviously, each test would cost you a lot of money, and oncology generally is a very resource heavy field. So in those resource limited settings, do you want our patients to get exposed to so many tests? That's another question that I need to answer. Thirdly, there is a standard test that is used because it was a global multicentric trial, whether you have that test available in our country or not. So these are some of the questions that I get to uh, I have to answer as an expert of this trial. Now, if you bind this back to your example, you are presenting the data. The first question is that why did you design this study? What was the rationale? The point here is that yes, theoretically or from academic point of view, the study makes huge sense that you are able to detect the progression very early. That's fine, but whether this will be helpful in practice, the answer is we don't know yet. The second is when you analyze the data and presented that data, I'm not going into data analysis of this trial, but just to highlight that the data could be presented in a different way, which may not be the right representation or not the right representation that your audience wants to see. So these are some of the questions that I would want to get an answer to. And lastly, there was another point on uncovering current thinking. So the oncology community thinks that there is no need to currently test for any emergence of progression, and we are fine to change the treatment only when patient is clinically not doing well or has toxicity to current treatments, or there is a severe increase in the lesion size, right? So that's their current thinking. Now, how do you take this thinking to a different kind of thinking, which probably is in line with this trial? That is something that remains to be seen. Okay, so just highlighting again what were the different elements of the scientific engagement model. You plan well, then you go about your scientific exchange, which has multiple elements. Most important being building credibility and trust. Follow up, confirm and follow up with your action items, and then do a post-visit analysis. Now, this is the traditional way of working, right? That you as an MSL, tomorrow if you are an MSL, you go and meet the clinician and have your interactions, come back. Now, the world is also moving to a larger level or the broader way of thinking where you are not just limited to the clinician, but you need to also ensure that you are aware of the entire health system. Whether uh, it's beyond the scope of today's discussion, but just to briefly tell you is that it's not just the clinician who is the decision maker for patient, but there are a lot of other elements which are now playing a role, whether it could be an administrator or it could be some policy makers, government. uh, so we as a team, we work in a holistic way of impact, how we bring impact to this overall ecosystem of healthcare, right? So beyond traditional model, there are also various ways which we need to build ourselves on. Now, in medical affairs, when you do a lot of this work, how do you define that you are doing good work? How do you measure your work, right? So there could be some key performance indicators for this. There could be process related key performance indicators, whether you did the process right or not, and whether you achieved some outcomes of or not through these processes. Okay, I think all of you should be quite familiar that when you are an MSL, you have to work in field, meet with certain number of people, and uh, also gather some insights, as I highlighted in one of the previous slides, and those insights have to be shared with your uh, overall cross-functional team. When it comes to output, uh, what kind of change are you able to bring in the overall ecosystem is one of the outcomes that you can look or build on. That what number of people, let's say you have about 200 people or 300 people, how many of them are actually going to believe in what you are trying to tell them through the credible sources. Of course, it's not about influencing somebody to do something undue, which is not permitted, but it's about bringing the right knowledge to them so that they feel that there is merit in changing their practice. So that could be one of the outcome KPI or output KPI. And one last thing, which is probably related to this kind of this example that I just quoted, is that you are talking about a new test which has never been done before in breast cancer patients. So you will probably have to develop some laboratory related capabilities also. So that if they want to change their practice, these facilities are available, right? So this is very specific to this particular example. Okay. So just to summarize, it's very important that whatever we do is in line with our overall strategy and we are able to understand, map, and impact the overall ecosystem of healthcare. What are the areas of greatest opportunity? By this, I mean that when I quoted that example, what was the biggest opportunity in that was the ability to drive that we are able to bring that test into the picture so that if there is a merit in changing treatment, patients having undergone those tests would we be able to benefit from that. So that was the area of greatest opportunity for that particular example. It's very, very important to plan whatever you do. So that definitely goes without saying. And as I mentioned repeatedly, when you have an interaction, it's also very important that you are seen as a credible scientific partner so that there is a bi-directional, free-flowing flow of information. And it goes without saying that all this will happen only if we have a great amount of scientific depth in whatever subject we are working on. Thank you, and I will pause here to take any questions.
All right. Thank you so much, Dr. Kirtan, first of all, for being here with us today and for an excellent and amazing talk, which I'm sure must be insightful to the students who are viewing us right now at this moment. I do have received some questions from the student, and my first question to you, Dr. Kirtan, would be uh, what standards or the frameworks do you use to ensure scientific accuracy, balance, and non promotional integrity, considering CFT expectations that are there in place? So maybe if you could throw some lights onto that.
Thank you, Ashish. So I think first and foremost is that we have to read a lot in whichever field we are in. I have personally what I do is I have an alert setup that every week there is a new publication in the Lancet or New England Journal of Medicine. I get an email update and I go through a lot of new data. So first and foremost is we have to read a lot so that we are able to uh, be seen also as credible sources of information, right? Only when you know your subject well, people will be able to relate to you and listen to you. That's the basic premise. It's also very important that we communicate the right information uh, and in the right way with the adequate references if somebody asks you that question. And when you talk about cross-functional team, uh, sometimes when you explain the scientific information in a very scientific way, they may not be able to understand that well. So we have to use the terms that they understand. When you're in a pharma company and you are from an academic background, it's very easy to you know talk in the language that we are comfortable with. But the third and most important point which I want to highlight is we have to speak in their language so that they are able to understand it better. So I think reading well, communicating that well, and also in the language that your audience understands, that would be very important.
All right, perfect. Thanks a lot, Dr. Kirtan. My second question to you would be, what specific behaviors and capabilities distinguish high performing MSLs in scientific exchanges? Would request if you could highlight that.
I think it's more or less the same. We could still
Yeah.
stick to the first same answer which I gave previously. One thing probably I would want to add is that you know being able to or being willing to learn new things, because once we come from academic background, our mindset is different, but industry requires a different mindset, and it would be very important to have the right mindset, the right learning mindset, and be open to anything that comes your way. That would be the most basic attitude that would be very important.
All right. Thanks a lot for that. Uh, my next question is something which is revolving around digital and omni-channel space, Dr. Kirtan. And the question is, how do you leverage digital tools, remote engagements, and other similar aspects, including artificial intelligence, to drive science forward? And if they are actually impactful when we compare it with the face-to-face mode of interaction?
Right. So I think COVID has taught us to go digital, right? A lot of things have become much more easier, and right now we are talking on a virtual platform. So uh, overall, I think for interactions point of view, also there is a lot of use of omni-channel where you channelize all your sources to a single target, and all of these sources are talking the same language, whether you do it through your face-to-face interactions or some emails or any other media related articles or all that are talking of the same language, and that one to your one target individual or target group of people, I would say. AI, I think two things which I have learned in AI is that AI is obviously to be seen as a complementary tool rather than a replacement tool. Uh, what we have been trying to do is that we use AI to best extent possible, but then we also need to use our best human judgment that whenever AI gives us some content, it still has to be verified by us to be used.
All right, thanks a lot for that. My next question, Dr. Kirtan, is something which is revolving around the uncertainty which is there in place, because we know that entire pharmaceutical landscape and medical affairs as a function is continuously evolving with newer innovations, newer science coming across on a daily basis. So the question is, when evidence is evolving or ambiguous, how do you maintain credibility while addressing tough questions from the experts?
So I think that's everywhere, right? Every field is
Yeah.
evolving at a very fast pace, not just pharma industry, and everywhere you need to learn new skills to stay relevant. In pharma, for example, there are a lot of analytic platforms which are using real world data or real world evidences which are going to be used. There are also platforms which can interact with the hospital EMRs, and they can give you a pulled data from hospital EMRs without you having to put in too much of efforts. So such tools are being developed right now. They are not ready for full use, as I would say, at least not in our country. But that's one area where the industry is also focusing on. AI obviously is going to come in a big way, not just in any field, but I mean in pharma as well. It's how we use it to our best advantage that remains to be seen.
All right. Thanks a lot for that, Dr. Kirtan. My last question to you would be, what piece of advice or what guidance you would want to give to the students who are viewing us right now that would help them be futuristic in their approach?
I think it's all of what I already said, that you have to keep reading a lot. You have to keep yourself updated whichever field you are into, and also be open to learn other things which are beyond your comfort zone. So those two things I would want to share, that being open to learn and be an expert in your field.
All right, perfect. Thanks a lot, Dr. Kirtan, for addressing those questions which came across from the audience. And thanks a lot for being with us today. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ashish, and thank you everyone for having me.
All right, with that, let us now move forward to our next talk, which is compliance in practice. So for that, we have with us Dr. Pradyumna Muralidharan. Dr. Pradyumna is a medical governance manager with nearly a decade across oncology and biologics. He currently steers medical governance, building rigorous review standards, compliance, scientific narratives, and signatory processes. His prior experience spans medical and clinical affairs management, regional oncology advisory, and biologics strategy. He began in frontline critical care and holds postgraduate training in pharmacology, bringing a data driven, patient centric lens to every scientific project. With that, please join me in welcoming Dr. Pradyumna on the stage. Dr. Pradyumna, over to you.
So first of all, a very good afternoon. Ashish, am I audible? Yes,
Yes,
I
you are.
hope there
Yeah,
is no
good.
lag in
No,
my
no, no.
video and audio, right? Okay, thank you
Yes.
so much. So first of all, I would like to thank SageGS and KM Hospital who have been on this collaborative front with AstraZeneca, and thanks to Ashish and team for putting together a fantastic, elite group of panelists and speakers who have really been, collaborating for a very long time, and this has really helped several pharmacologists pan India, and it has really brought about what's the real face of pharma and what is pharma preparedness that any pharmacologist that is currently going through, as in a few more months several exams coming up, and also their futuristic role, not necessarily in medical affairs alone, but in terms of clinical trials, in terms of development, vigilance, and so on. So thank you all, first of all, for taking out this afternoon and being very patient with me as well going ahead, and also with several other speakers who have really shared their extensive knowledge and experience in today's session. So without any further ado, let me tell what I do in short. So as a medical governance manager, the synonyms are probably the way the role evolves or has been called in several other
Hello.
probably. Yes,
Sir, you
yes,
will be
Mr. Nero.
sharing the slides or it?
Yes, I will be sharing the slides. Yeah, I will be sharing the slides from my end. Would you want to share it as well or anything, Mr. Nero, from
No,
your end?
we cannot see the slides on the screen. So
Right,
yes.
right, right. I'm about to start my share screen. Let me just go ahead with this. Yeah, if it's visible now. Yes,
Yes, just put it full screen, sir.
sure, sure.
And you
I'll
can
do
go
that.
ahead.
Yep, thank you. So let me just change the mode a bit, and I hope it is visible to everyone. And
Yes, yes,
so
please go
yes,
ahead, sir.
so there's a significant amount of data sharing. There's a significant amount of engagement practices, in pharma. And our previous speakers as well, and Dr. Keithan highlighted how scientific, excellence, or in terms of data sharing, a significant amount of, value is being added to clinicians' practice. But one question that always comes when any activity is initiated by a colleague from pharma is, am I doing something right, or what should I not do rather than what should I do more? So these are a few questions that frequently need to be answered, particularly when it comes to you being in a customer facing, or probably in the front line when you're representing your organization to a doctor, to a patient, or be to any other stakeholder in the pharmaceutical ecosystem. So what I get to understand from basically compliance and practice is, how well can I reduce risk, particularly when it comes to any activity, be it even a small article being shared with a doctor, probably us going in clinic and meeting the doctor and discussing in detail about it. Am I sharing the right amount of information? So Dr. Kirtan also repeatedly emphasized upon being updated with a lot of data. So this almost every day something is coming out in every therapy area, not necessarily in oncology alone, but if you take it from the cardiovascular perspective, respiratory, immunology, every system is evolving very rapidly. So what I would like to take you all today through my experience in the pharma industry and the last 2 to 3 years as a medical governance manager is, what does medical governance really mean, and how does it really cross collaborate with different cross function? What are the key pillars that medical affairs hold, and what is the importance of one of those very key pillars, that is governance in medical affairs? And then I'll be focusing on the 3 P's of compliance, what are certain pharmaceutical codes? These are our national codes, and I will just highlight two important codes which I will request our viewers across pan India that it's a good read. So these pharmaceutical codes are the first frontline information that you need to have in hand to plan your activities well and efficient. And last, I will be going through a little bit of outcomes and risks, and then I know you would have had a digital detox for about the last 1 hour 15 minutes, but we are going to take our phones in the end because there is a short poll on a few practical aspects of medical governance which I'll request you all. It's a Slido, so there's a QR code, so please be ready with your phones, and it's about 3 to 4 questions which we can also take in detail. So a short disclaimer, colleagues across India, policies are different across the industry. Each organization modifies it accordingly as per their activity. But if you see the principles in general, whatever we adopt are in alignment with all the national codes that are involving pharmaceutical industry. To just highlight just two very key codes. First is the UCPMP, the Uniform Code of Pharmaceutical Marketing Practices. It was introduced in 2014, but then we had the updated version in 2024. And then the Medical Council of India, that is the IMA, 2002, which is actually currently leading us with all our requirements from the regulations perspective. But this was later modified by the National Medical Council, the NMC Code of 2023, which is the second most important. But there are certain revisions that are happening in relevance to it. So we are still following the IMA Code of 2002 in certain aspects. And also, just to give you all, I would be expressing certain personal opinions on or my views, but these are under the lens of what I am currently operating on behalf of the standard operating procedures or the codes that I have been, going through in AstraZeneca. But as I told, as you guys keep evolving and as you all keep learning across, you would be very clear in understanding what really does your organization need, and whether, as I repeat again, are we doing the right thing with every activity that we take place. So what is medical governance and what is clinical governance? So as doctors, I think clinical governance has always been a front runner, right? So we always create a framework, and every healthcare organization definitely needs to have a framework, because we need to provide quality care and quality, safeguard whatever existing care we are providing to our patients. I think governance in pharmaceutical also revolves around the same aspect, but it generally just takes one thing into consideration. Am I creating a very open, a transparent, and a blame-free reporting system? This is what we need to understand, colleagues. So every organization definitely will have a very effective, efficient, and accountable system. But how far are we implementing it in practice in our daily activities is what pharmaceutical governance is all about. You might be sharing an information which, from a medical perspective, might be off label. But when we look ahead, when we look at our business objectives, or when we look ahead other cross functions who are accompanying us, we need to first see our surrounding and understand that are we really in a position to share that off label information. Because the intent with what a medical person meets a doctor is way different with the intent with what any sales force or any marketing personnel would meet. Because there are certain restricted laws, as you would understand as I go ahead, which kind of concises information that can be shared, or limited information that can be shared by our colleagues. So are we training our colleagues to understand that this is the quantum of information that can be shared, and are we creating that as a very resilient and sustainable health system is what pharmaceutical governance is all about. Yeah. So the key takeaway that I want you all to understand is, are we creating an open, transparent, and a blame-free system? So this is what I want us to have a key takeaway from this. And clinical governance, I know this chart, this Venn diagram and this chart might be a little more extensive, but let me just move a step ahead. And I just want you all to have this as a key takeaway. What do I do in clinical governance? You see to that patients get adequate clinical effectiveness. And how is this being done? Through adequate research, adequate body of knowledge that is being generated each and every day is what actually, is the front runner for clinical governance. Second, am I audit prepared? Am I always ready to answer any question that either comes from another peer doctor, or from a patient, or from any other medical managerial persons, anybody for that matter, to be ready with whatever quantum of information or with any care that I'm extending to any of the patients. This is what clinical governance is all about. risk management. So when I say risk management, any form of significant incident that happens in a hospital, I'm sure most of us as interns would have had at least one opportunity to see something called as a mortality meet, right? You would see that cross you know departments come together and they define and understand how well can I reduce a risk from happening, or how well can I extend good care to a patient. So that's what clinical governance there is about. And finally, education and training. So this has to happen on a very constant and a very defined timeline on a regular basis, such that all these audits, risk management are continuously incorporated into our educational learning and development activities, and thereby enhancing what as good doctors we can extend to our patients. Pharmaceutical governance again revolves around the same aspect. We are always audit ready. We keep our documents, we keep all our essential activities ready, such that any audit preparedness always comes and helps us in understanding, have we done a formal root cause analysis, a significant root cause analysis. And as you all join the industry, very frequently you will be exposed to this term, that have we done a root cause analysis, and has that investigation you know mitigated the threat, or it has actually created a good objective for the organization, thereby so that we can implement it to all across functions, be it sales, marketing, our supply team members, our sales forces, everybody who's meeting a doctor. So this is what is all pharmaceutical governance is all about. And what I also like to emphasize is, are we allowing lessons to be learned? Are we sharing them? Are we not criticizing but constructively critiquing our daily activities and our interactions with our peers? So any organization that manages risk effectively and efficiently is definitely known to provide adequate outcomes, because the pharma model is changing. We need to understand that it is no more just uh, you know sales force and doctor. Now it is more evidence based and a value based care. So evidence and value based care is what medical, as pharmaceutical pharma professionals, that we need to understand and constantly emphasize, because that is what takes the organization in the long run, and also helps us in reducing several risks that might come, be it a regulatory risk, or even, so there have been issues where cancellation of licenses have happened. You may not be able to operate in a particular region or in a particular, because of the risk that one of the activities has carried about. And also very important is the reputational risk. I know a lot of picture comes into social media, so I think we will be understanding that as I move across. So uh, let me just tell you all that medical affairs is a very broad domain, and we as medical personnel collaborate just broadly into two groups: internal colleagues or internal stakeholders and external stakeholders. And those are our business function, our regulatory functions, our clinical trial team members, our pharmacovigilance team members. Externally, our key motto, though healthcare professionals form our very key stakeholders, but always keep in mind that we put our patients first. That is one of our very core values as pharma professionals, that we need to understand. We need to put our patients first and view it from their lens, the needs, their objectives, their knowledge, their attitude, their practices. How can that create a very efficient ecosystem? And how can I incorporate that in my organizational policy, such that I'm also extending that effective information to healthcare professionals? So this is what you know uh, uh, I think effective collaboration is all about. And medical affairs, we need to be spreading our wings wide to collaborate and with everybody, but also very key important are policy holders, or our policymakers, our government officials. They also form a very critical aspect or stakeholder in pharmaceutical organizations, because every interaction with the government official is perceived or viewed in a very different manner. That is, our intent probably might be to improve access or improve affordability, or probably improve the reach of good quality medicines to a larger care group of patients. But we need to understand that these are very sensitive information and sensitive interactions with government officials, which need to be, undertaken under very severe guardrails, or probably under very severe, restrictions, and also the what you call as probably the way the meetings are being conducted with them, so as to make it as a very compliant, activity when we interact with government officials. And you need to ensure that everything boils down to just one thing: effective, good quality, and affordable medicines. And those that need to be prescribed, dispensed, are also being noticed by medical affairs. So, as I told you in the previous slide, the E, that is education, forms a very important aspect for all these stakeholders. Educating them constantly about the policies, educating them about our standard operating procedures plays a very important role. And medical has a significant role in this, because we just don't talk science, we also talk about policies to our customers and to all our external stakeholders, which plays a very important role. So what are the foundation pillars of medical affairs? Dr. Kirtan also highlighted a significant amount of information about this. As I told you, it is no more just a sales force and a doctor's interaction. Clinical outcomes, our value-based medicine, our evidences, everything is changing. So there is an increasing demand, as you all would be seeing, for every therapy area, right? So there are several situations where you come across patients, trying to exhaust whatever best possible care that they have. But guidelines are changing. The protocols are changing. The need to, innovate and create a balance between innovation and governance is changing. So that is why governance and compliance forms a very, very important pillar. And you will understand that if I arrange this diagram as as a core, governance and compliance will be at the center of that core, right? And all the other activities taken care of by medical affairs will be definitely be, it'll be the gravitation of for probably all the other domains that medical affair does, be it from insights your doctors are giving, be it the quantum of evidence you're planning to generate. How are you going to develop confidence with your HCPs? How are you going to develop confidence with your patients and other stakeholders? And finally, your patient-centric and medical leadership, everything will be governed by compliance and medical governance. So why are we doing this? We are doing this so that we create good standards. We create, a consensus. We identify that these standards that we are creating at the point of an audit is a measurable quantity. I think Dr. Kirtan again spoke about KPIs, key performance indicators, right? So those are certain standards. Very similarly, there are compliance standards as well, which are evaluated both by as a medical governance manager, as a line monitoring activity, and also by our compliance team members as well. They also regularly monitor whether to see these standards are being followed on a regular basis, and whether we are audit ready, so that we can provide effective, good quality assurance, and also good quantum of information when an audit is being conducted in the organization. And this slide, I think, goes without a saying. I think these are three critical principles. I think as pharmacologists, we always follow, right? The basic ethical principles, which is, justice, beneficence, and autonomy. I think one more fourth one that is also that we need to understand is no harm or non-maleficence. I think that is what is a very, very critical aspect in ethical research. So the same principles you will carry on in pharmaceutical governance as well. That you need to see to that the benefit of your data is being disseminated well to the stakeholders. You see to that more than beneficence, also the second important one is no harm. We do not do harm by sharing any data which might seem very overarching, or probably might carry information which is off label, or probably which is yet to be completely evaluated but still available in public domain. And then very important is respecting your stakeholders. I think if that the concept of informed consent also comes in the pharmaceutical governance. We cannot carry out any activity without a established scope of work or an agreement between any of the stakeholders. That is a very core aspect in any pharmaceutical governance. If there is, because it really implicates what is autonomy. That is, whether the patient really wants to be part of a clinical trial, whether a doctor really wants to be part of an activity. Are we adhering to all the global as well as our Indian guidelines, which govern, a good relationship between a pharmaceutical industry and a doctor? All those are highlighted in our agreements. So without signing an agreement, no further activity would ideally be processed in any pharmaceutical, governance system. So that highlights the autonomy of a pharmaceutical organization or any stakeholder of who the pharmaceutical organization is planning to interact with. So as I move across, I'll focus on two aspects which are, a core of medical affairs, or probably as a scientific personnel that we look into. The first being promotional materials. You would be creating as well as reviewing a significant amount of promotional material. So when I say promotional materials, these are materials that your sales team members or your marketing team members are going to be showcasing to doctors. So I know there are too many points here, but I will just focus on one or two very key aspects here. See to that every material that you review has a marketing authorization. So I know most of you would be aware of something called as an SMPC, that is summary of product characteristics, or in India we also call it as prescriber information, and it is a leaflet that is available in every package insert, or in every vial or box, or everything that a patient purchases as a from. And you would be seeing that all this marketing authorization that is obtained from the regulatory agency, the DCGI, the CDSCO approved information, is also being shared with the patients and with the doctors. Nothing outside, any point information outside this would be considered as a off-label promotion, and we are not allowed to do off-label promotion because probably the science is there in the system, but it is the responsibility of a pharmaceutical organization to kind of restrict overemphasis or undue emphasis being laid on such information. Okay. Second, very important is always see to that your information is accurate, it's fair and balanced. Sometimes you might be trying to get in competitor information, you might be doing cross trial comparison, you might be comparing your product with another product. See to that it is a fair and a balanced activity that goes on. See to that the claims are not misleading the HCPs who are the front line. That all information must be referenced and must be up to date. And see to that always you substantiate it with good quality studies. Particularly be a little careful when you're using exploratory endpoints and real world studies. So as medical governance manager, it's our due responsibility to see to that before the material leaves the company, it is essential that it is authorized, it is well verified, and it is authentic, and also no off label is shared. These are few critical points or key takeaways I want to know. And also the government, I think, is very well clear nowadays that you can't use image of doctors or healthcare professional, though probably that is not the intent of the organization. The impression that it creates or the perception that it creates is that doctor is probably trying to promote a brand ideally. So that is the perception that it creates. So again, one key takeaway I want to also highlight is intent versus impression. Okay, our intent might be right when we are doing a particular activity, but the impression that it creates in the social media or probably from a legal viewpoint might be entirely different. And one also very key information from this is do not cherry pick information. As I told in the very first slide, our first key goal of a pharmaceutical organization is to be transparent, is to be open, and create any blame free environment for reporting. So we see to that we don't cherry pick information. We do not particularly from adverse events perspective, we should not hide any form of information pertaining to adverse events, or anything that has come up recently should be evaluated by your cross functions, your vigilance team and you together, prior to it being disseminated with a doctor. And always be a little more careful when you use certain superscripts telling that it is very safe, very effective, and so on, because those carry value. Even that single word carries a lot of value, particularly when it is being put up in the public domain. And as medical affairs professional, you're going to be doing several different activities. One component is reviewing your medical information. The second component that I'm showcasing on the slide now is meetings. So you're going to do a lot of pharma organized meetings, or a third party. You might be engaging with several other vendors in your organization who will help you, probably, gain access to a good quality logistics, or probably, supporting a doctor in terms of scientific exchange or advisory boards, investigator meetings. These are large scale meetings. You would have several key doctors attending it. So to coordinate and, bring forth all the necessary arrangements together, probably you will be engaging with a third party. But broadly, if I have to tell you from a medical perspective, your activities will be classified as either promotional or a non-promotional. So when I say promotional, those are activities which mostly, or not mostly, but I think only a Salesforce members will be able to do. So the quantum of information they are sharing, everything has to be reviewed by you prior to them, disseminating it, be it a patient awareness activity or a small in-hospital meeting, or probably even in a large conference, actually. So that should be taken into consideration. But when I say non-promotional, you have a little more free hand. You can share your pipeline information. You can share data that is upcoming, that is going to be coming up in the future. It gives you that leverage, to showcase how much of scientific expansion is happening within your organization. But also to be very cautious, see to that the wordings, or probably the way it is being, disseminated, does not carry any undue influence on the doctor. It does not carry any undue influence on probably any external stakeholder who is actually viewing this information, because such meetings probably carry a lot of value, because you are on the front line, you go and interact, but also keeping in mind that you're facing, you're a representative from the organization, and you need to put those risk barriers first, to see to that no much of undue or excess, data is also being shared with the stakeholders. So these are broadly certain types of meetings that I just wanted to highlight in the, pharma community that we do. So, team, what do we need to take home as, as part of this session is, always when you're evaluating any kind of standards or regulation, or probably any information, see to that the 3 P's of compliance are in place: the person, the policy, and the processes. This is what we need to know, because if these 3 P's are taken care, I think probably any quantum of information probably being shared, or any activity done, takes into consideration a lot of, probably risk barriers that we can avoid as a team. And one very important thing that also just I need to close on the slide is the CAPA, CAPA. Any corrective action or any preventive action, as we call it in the action plan. But probably when Dr. Kirtan was also focusing on a lot of, scientific excellence and how the charter goes by, corrective actions and preventive action come in all places. So what I need to just close on with my presentation, I know I'm overshooting time, but just a minute is, as I told you all at the very beginning, please, go through the UCPMP code, and also the next one is the National Medical Council Code of 2023. The UCPMP has the recent version 2024. The NMC Council has the recent Ethics and Medical Registration notification as of 2023. So please take your time to go through these. These will definitely highlight how to run your interactions and how to run your activities in a safe and effective manner. So with that, I just need to focus on to just understand, that medical governance plays a role from the birth of the molecule till it is out for promotion. This is all I need to, is the key takeaway. And all the light blue bubbles you see are probably all those aspects of, activity of where probably an unethical practice or a lack of governance can lead to, severe disparagement of your, reputation as an organization outside. So see to that these are very key areas where medical plays a role, where I've highlighted in red. Probably the maroon ovals that you see are where we need to be very sure that good enforcement of all regulations plays a very important role, and it has a lot of implication, because significant amount of monetary, loss can be prevented, particularly when good governance is in place. And risks, there are only three risks that you need to know: either a reputation risk, or a business risk, or a statutory, or what we call as a regulatory risk. So these risks have to be taken care by the medical affairs personnel, because any one information out can affect any of these aspects particularly. So you need to classify the risk and also report, be open, be transparent in reporting these activities. What would happen if you kind of skip these, and what are the disciplinary actions that can be taken from the regulatory authorities, is there can be lawsuits against the company, fines can be large, these are high monetary value fines that can be imposed on the company. License to operate in a country country's particular jurisdiction can also be cancelled, and it carries a lot of regulatory risk over a period of time. So how do we strengthen it? Very simple. Regularly train, effectively engage your stakeholders, measure the quality of this, because as I told, every standard should be measurable. So measure the quality of these. That is why in not in AstraZeneca alone, but in every pharmaceutical ecosystem, we do something called as line monitoring. So every member who does an activity has to fill in a set of a questionnaire to understand that whatever has been done is can be captured as a value, can be accounted for, such that it gives us some form of a number to understand how good are we or how compliant are we in doing things. Finally, regular education, research, and share the learnings with all your cross function, such that you remain compliant. So I think I'm closing on the session, but just three more questions that we are going to be taking prior to the open questions from the forum. So I request you all to cut down your session time now, and we can move on to your mobiles now. And I request you all to kindly scan the QR code. I will give you all about 10-20 seconds, and I will then move on to the Slido screen and understand how the poll questions are being answered. So Ashish, if I may request you to kindly coordinate, and because I'm sure someone would be typing on the chat if something is not accessible, or probably they're
Yeah,
having some
absolutely. I think
issues with it.
Nirav,
Yeah.
please have a look at it in case somebody
I will
is
just
facing any
reduce
sort
my
of challenge.
screen if that is okay, and probably minimize this. And shall I move to the Slido section as well, Ashish? If I can stop
Yeah, yeah. I think
sharing,
I think yeah, we can go ahead.
we can go ahead, right?
Yeah.
Yep. Okay. Sorry. Yes, I hope my Slido screen is visible, Ashish, and I can start the poll.
I could see the questions.
Yeah,
Yeah, you
yeah.
can start the poll.
I'll
Yeah,
start the poll.
yeah, sure.
So, team, you have about roughly 5 to 10 seconds to answer, and I request the attendees to kindly answer these questions. So, the first question is: you are working as a medical advisor in a reputed pharma major. Your sales team comes to you to request that please add a slide for a promotional CME, because this is to be taken by an expert in an upcoming conference, but it is still not in regulatory approval. What do you want to do? Okay. Okay, I think I'll stop the poll now. And so I see a significant an amount of answers saying seek compliance guidance before allowing it. That's a very good answer. But as a individual, what would be your first reaction as a medical affair personnel? Is probably, is to say to that, when if you have gone through this question in detail, it says it is not in your regulatory approval. Okay. So it's a pretty straightforward answer that, and also, as I told you, it is a promotional CME as well. That's what we need to understand. So there's a very clear cut guidance which says please do not add any such indication which is off label or still not approved by any regulatory authority in the system to be added onto a slide. Okay, so this would be the best answer or the right answer: refuse the addition as it is not an approved indication. Okay, so please do not add it, because probably there are data that would be upcoming, right? There would be still a lot of review that needs to be done, and most of the medical affair personnel would have an experience with what is called as a sec meeting, SEC, a subject expert committee, where they provide a data to the subject expert committee to understand whether adequate amount of evidence has been generated around that indication. So by adding it, we are putting the company under risk of an undue promotion or probably an off-label information being shared. So thank you for that. Let me move to the second question in this, and I'm starting the poll, and I kindly request you all to give your answers. So the question is: a top key opinion leader. Sorry, I couldn't abbreviate that. It is KOL. He mentions to you that his paper has been accepted in the US for a global conference, and he wants a sponsorship for his travel and stay and conference registration. So how will you, as medical affair personnel, handle this situation? Basically, yeah. So this is an international activity. You as operations from India have been requested. So how do you want to go about this? Do you still want to support? Again, as I want to put this disclaimer, it is again from the lens that probably we are operating from AstraZeneca, but every organization's policies might be slightly different. So we need to accept that kind of information and some drawbacks that each answer might have. So let's see that. I will give you another 5 more seconds and I request you all to vote. So this is a particularly little bit of a gray area still. So how do we go about this? So there are different perspectives to this. So do I go about telling that my company has not sponsored this, or probably the study itself is not sponsored by the company? He might be a principal investigator in a study. Are we okay to still go about, or your policies, or does the national code does not allow any such activity happening abroad to be sponsored by the Indian subsidiary? Okay, probably if the study has a PI in the US, there might be PIs across the globe, right? There may be PIs across many countries. So it may not be possible that your country rules or regulation does not allow such activities. Because I will just highlight this, and as I stop this question, thank you all for your answers. So yes, that's the right answer. We politely refuse in the current situation, because if you go through the UCPMP clause, there has been some revisions to it which says that uh, activities which are particularly happening abroad, and that too particularly when it comes from an Indian perspective, we need to be a little cautious, because uh, doctors moving abroad to present such papers cannot be sponsored from an Indian perspective. Okay, so there are some rules and regulations which are still evolving, and there are different variations to it. But again, this is the possible way that we are seeing it currently. But as you come across into the industry and you put yourself into it, probably a little more in-depth understanding of it would be obtained. So thank you for that. And as I move to the next question, the last one. So this is the last one. So a key opinion leader, the poll has started, colleagues. I think you all can vote. As you know, they are keen to visit a prestigious global conference as a delegate in somewhere in Paris. So he wants again a sponsorship for his travel and conference. So what would be your response? Do you still want to support? You don't want to support? So in compared to the previous question and this, we are delegates, delegating him as for this particular session. And in the previous question, it was as a speaker, or probably as a presenter for a particular poster or a session. So I see a lot of answers saying politely refuse it. Okay, so I think I'll stop the poll now, and I thank you all for your responses. Yes, so there's a very clear cut. This is also a very straightforward answer, where the national code currently does not allow any form of delegation. Okay, that is supported by pharma to probably visit a foreign country. And there are a lot of changes that have happened now, but it's very clear that unless they are a speaker, or probably unless they are uh, uh, presenting something which probably needs Indian data or Indian experience to be shared on that platform, such that it is going to modify practice. So all these rationale have to be provided. But when it is a delegate, there's a very clear answer where we may not be able to provide. And this is what the current national code is all about. So with this, I think I'm coming to the end of my presentation. Just one last slide, if I can, if time permits, Ashish. I'm
Yeah,
just
yeah,
gonna
please,
take
please go ahead.
1 minute
Please go ahead.
just to
Yeah.
close on my presentation, and I thank you all for your patience. So I just like to summarize and just say what is towards the end of this presentation is: always key stakeholder discussions form a key part, but always when you initiate with key stakeholders as early as possible, share a good quantity of information, but also parallelly kindly keep your policies in mind. Second, familiarize yourselves with the standard operating procedures of your company and also the national code of regulations and standards, and be very clear with the objective and rationale why you want to meet a doctor and share this information. Third is when there is an external engagement, always see to that you have enough time to conduct these external engagements, but with a good planning and strategy along with your policies in place. And also the fourth very important is see to that the perception when the situation is being viewed by any external stakeholder, be it a government organization, be it a patient, be it another doctor, or probably any other competitor or any form of information, that the perception that we are creating is to avoid any form of off label or any type of policy deviation. And finally, a very very important part that I need to tell is always document your activities. If it is not documented, it is considered it is not done there. So we need to actually ensure that there is an independent scrutiny, and every documentation raises a good trail of documentation, and we are always audit ready and audit prepared. So I'd like to finally thank you all for your patience, and just with this quote, which is very very motivating and probably inspiring to many. Documentation is like a term insurance. Okay, it satisfies, because no one who subscribes for it always looks at its benefit. Probably you're in an organization for 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, irrespective of it, but there would be a situation where you will be audited, and a good documentation carries on that long term benefit to you. So with that, thank you all for your patient listening, and Ashish, I'll be happy to take up a few questions on
All
this.
right, perfect. And thanks a lot, Dr. Pradyumna, for that
And sorry,
engaging.
apologies for
No
overshooting by
problem. No problem at all.
5 minutes.
Thank you so
Thank
much
you.
for engaging and insightful talk, which I'm sure must be beneficial for the students who are watching us right now at this point of time. Thank you so much. And also, you highlighted about the importance of governance and risk mitigation, that and reiterated our one of our core values, right? We do the right thing at AZ. So thanks a lot for that, Dr. Pradyumna. Due to paucity of time, we may not be able to address the questions at this point of time, because the next speaker is already there, and we may have to move forward to our next part. But yes, audience, feel free to reach out to Dr. Pradyumna or myself on LinkedIn, and we would be able to address your concern in case you have any.
Yes.
Thanks,
Thank
Dr.
you all.
Pradyumna, for
Please
that.
feel free to write to us,
Yeah.
and we would be happy to answer your questions. Okay. Have a great session and rest of the sessions and rest of the PharmaSteer ahead. Thank you all. Thank you all once
Thank you
again.
so much, Dr. Pradyumna. All right, let us now move on to our last but not the least session of the day, which is on brand planning and strategic thinking. And for that, we have with us Mr. Parag Mahajan, Senior Marketing Manager, Oncology, AstraZeneca India. Mr. Parag Mahajan is a senior marketing leader with over a decade of experience shaping strategy and execution across specialty and rare diseases, hematology, and oncology, most recently leading national portfolios in GI oncology. He has driven end-to-end brand stewardship from insight generation and positioning to omni-channel campaigns, evidence-informed medical narratives, and launch excellence. Earlier roles across brand management, product management, and scientific services built a strong foundation in customer research, value proposition, design, field force enablement, and compliant science-led engagement. Starting his career in clinical facing roles, he brings a practical, outcomes focus, and perspective that connects strategy to real world impact. With that, please join me in welcoming Mr. Parag on stage. Mr. Parag, over to you.
Hey, thanks, Ashish, for this warm introduction. I think it was too long, but I think it's more team about the marketing, core 10 to 11 years of career, and then a little bit of a sales exposure. Can I share my screen? Is it okay, Nirav?
Yes,
Yes, sir.
yes,
Yes, sir.
yes, it
Please,
is.
please.
Yeah, thanks. So I'll share my screen. Do let me know if it is visible.
Yes, just put it full screen, sir.
Yeah, is it visible or
No, it is not in the presenter view, sir.
okay? I'll just change. Now.
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, firstly, for giving me this opportunity to interact on this platform. Ashish and AstraZeneca also to give me this opportunity to interact with student and pharmacia committee specifically. I think the first session by Dr. Pradyumna makes my life much more easier because now you guys are pretty much aware about why pharma market is kind of a regulated, and being a pharmacology student, we will bump into each other as you enter into the medical profession and we are there into the marketing one. So you might we might find some familiar faces around the marketing and medical interaction. Now, as a picture of my presentation starts, it's confusing, right, for everyone, because we are surrounded by so many brands. There might be n number of brand which we might be coming across, right? And that's the role comes across as a marketeer or as a medical, how to ensure that your brand remains in the mind of a consumer. So that's where the role of brand planning and strategic thinking comes into picture. And I'll probably take it slide by slide over an interaction, and it's more of a monologue, but please be uh, stay invested in the overall interaction, and please post across your question. We will address them towards the end of the session. So why brand, right? And then for everybody, it's like a question: why do we need to brand something, right? It can be a normal wheat. Why do you need a silver wheat? Why do you need a MP wheat? Why do you need a particular kind of a rice, right? Why do you need only basmati rice? In our day-to-day activity, we see even the basmati rice is now becoming Kohinoor rice or some other rice material, right? So why they are actually branding it, right? When you see actually in your day-to-day life, a lot of brands remains familiar to you. On a top, Dove, you can easily relate with the products which you are using for day-to-day beautifying activities. You get a Burger King where you can actually relate a normal burger with the Burger King logo, right? Then you have Disney. You can actually relate with a lot of enthralling cartoons across which you see on a television. Again, Coca-Cola, it clearly defines the segment of cold drinks or aerated drinks. Similarly, the Pepsi is the same way. Now, why it is important to create a brand? Because it actually builds an emotional connect between a consumer and you. So a brand is any which way a non-physical entity, but it builds a emotional connect, which brings me to the next slide. It actually helps you to create an emotional connect, right? When you are saying that you are driving a Lamborghini, it gives you a recognition and differentiation in the market. When it comes to trust and credibility, none other than Tata comes to your mind. When you have the athlete emotional connections, you might have seen a lot of videos of Nike around it, a lot of emotional stories of world football playing athlete or somebody else playing hockey, somebody else playing major Olympic sports, right? They create an emotional connects of the athletes. So Nike is no longer a shoes; it's an emotional connection of athleticism. The second is how you can define the expectation. So when it comes to Apple, people actually relate the Apple phone as the more secure network ecosystem built around devices. So you have create Apple has created those defined set of expectation with their devices. Again, if you have that tag of brand align, people like to work for them, like the AstraZeneca, where we are working, Googles of the world, people like to work from them, Metas of the world, people like to work from them. So creating a brand is actually declutters the environment and gives you a single identity where people can easily identify what you mean to them. It is building an emotional connection. Now, we talk a lot about brand, but when you enter into the pharma industry, a lot of marketeers you will into or bump into, they will talk about strategy. And although everything and everybody is talking about strategy, we want to understand what exactly is strategy. Strategy is basically a long-term goals of any organization or an enterprise to drive or adopt a certain course of action. So somebody will adopt a certain course of action, like Louis Vuitton says that I will sell only the premium clothing range. Sometimes when Louis Philippe says that I'll sell probably a medium range clothing range. Sometimes Lee says that I'll only sell a jeans which are casual and semi-formal in use. So you create a course of action for a particular organization or an enterprise, and then you allocate all the resources what you have. So for example, to make it very easy, I'll say strategy is about being different. It means deliberately choosing a different set of activity to deliver a unique mix of value. Now if you see on the bottom left hand side of my screen, there are two airlines, right? And a lot of them might have among us have traveled with either of the airline. You could clearly differentiate. Indigo doesn't offer you a free food. Air India offers you a free food. Air India flight tickets are little expensive than Indigo. So Indigo operates on the cost based model. Air India operates on a little premium model in terms of aviation carriage industry. On the bottom right hand side, you could see two most familiar cars which come into India market. Wagoner talks about average and Tiago talks about safety. So whosoever wants a particular advantage, they choose their product accordingly. So that's what a brand meant to be. It can actually differentiate between the product, although the price range remains same. They uniquely select a set of activities to make themselves different versus the competition. So Wagoner, to build an average, they reduce the curb weight of vehicle so that your vehicle can run for a longer period of time. So they deliver a unique mix of value by creating a unique strategy around their brand. Moving to the next slide at Sun Tzu, and then a lot of you might be hearing across because he was one of the eminent Chinese emperor who won almost every battle in his life, right? And he always said every battle is won before it is fought. And I've shown you previously, right? Maruti cannot come and say that we are the uh, cars which gives you biggest economy or average in terms of your fuel efficiency. It is something built in the company to create those processes to bring that product outside to ensure it delivers the value. So every battle is won before it is actually fought. So it's something which is decided, and that's what the strategy talks about. So what you see actually in the market is the tactics. So you see amoxicillin clavulanic acid, Augmentin, which is the biggest brand, competing around more than 70 brands of amoxicillin clavulanic acid in India market, still winning as a premium price product. And people can just see the tactics, right? They have got the challenge of NPPA where they had to reduce the pricing, but still amoxicillin clavulanic acid from GSK wins over most of the amoxicillin clavulanic acid brands. Is because what they do in terms of strategy, how they differentiate their products, and that's where the role of brand management and strategic management comes into picture. Now, to give you a clear example, take an example of any airline industry like Indigo. Indigo decides that I want to be a low cost carrier. Then they say, to reduce the cost, I will have a human free support model. I will not have air hostess or other supporting staff so that I can reduce the cost of the model. It becomes an unrealized strategy because sometimes the regulations or guidelines doesn't allow you to have a human free support model. So then they have to implement that human enabled support model. Then there is a strategy where they call that deliberate strategy. Can I actually reduce the number of pilots flying the planes by increasing their flying hours? And you might have received the recent controversy where there was a limitation brought by a guideline of aviation where they said pilots can fly for the limited hours, which actually then derails the strategy what Indigo or any other economical airlines have executed in terms of limited number of pilot, more flying hours. So that again goes for toss. And then end of the day, they saw a premium coach can also be opted with business class. So even if I reduce the number of seat in economy class, I can charge probably 3x or 4x to the normal cost, and I can get and earn the more profit with the existing airline model. So then they come across a overall mixed strategy where they say I'm an economical carrier with the luxury seat, right? So a limited luxury seat can be offered. So when you decide what the strategy would be versus what is the realized strategy, there are lot many environmental factors come into picture, and that is where a lot of cross-functional team which work together to build a coherent strategy plays a critical role. Now, we will probably focus across what is the strategic brand management. Strategic brand management is a long-term process of building, measuring sustainable brand equity. Brand equity in the term, if I'm using Dove right now, I'll continuously using Dove after exhaustion of the product. So I'll not switch from one brand to another brand because I relate some experience with Dove. So that's how Dove has built a brand equity with me. So it requires strategic planning, consistent messaging, market positioning. So first, as a brand, you have to define what is your brand purpose, what your brand stands for. Sometimes what they say is Maruti cars are standing for average in terms of economy of cost, what you send on the fuel. Um, Toyota stands for the quality because those cars are giving you a low maintenance, high mileage in terms of overall cost or experience. Then you have German cars like the Volkswagen or Tatas of the world. Those actually gives you a safety as a brand purpose. So you have to define what your brand purpose stand for. Once you define your brand purpose, you have to decide who are your target audience. When you say my car offers average in terms of fuel economy, you can't target the same audience who are actually looking forward for safety in terms of a automotive industry. So your target, if your brand purpose is safety, will be different. If your brand purpose is average, your target audience will be different. Once you decide your target audience, you then create the brand positioning, and it's around the messaging what you create. The brand messaging are constantly going across to build that brand positioning in your mind or in the mind of targeted customer, to build that imagery where you say that Volkswagen stands for safety. So that's how the brand image has been created. The next part is the brand performance. Imagine Volkswagen talks about the safety, and the next day accident happens, and there is a serious casualty. Then if the brand performance is not standing across what they are claiming for, it damages the brand reputation. So you have to constantly measure the brand performance. When all put together are going in line, what you decided for the brand purpose, it actually builds a revenue for the organization, and that builds a brand equity. So as a consumer, you don't only buy one single product, you buy multiple products from the same brand. That's actually building a brand equity. Now, the process is, although very complex, it involves a strategic thinking. You understand who is your consumer, who is your competition, what are your brand's core strength, what is the situation in the market like. You create a charter, you create a patient journey in terms of pharma to understand what are the treatment gaps which are there in terms of patient, in terms of clinician, what are the competitors offering to your patients or your consumers, how well you can differentiate. So that's where you find the winning proposition among what consumer want, what your brand does best, and what are your competitor cannot offer. So you find the winning aha moment for your consumer where you can easily win. Then you create a brand positioning around your aha moment and say that this is where my brand stands for. To execute that, you create a complete brand plan. So a brand plan involves what is your core strategy for your particular brand and how are you trying to execute it. Now, although you create a brand plan, how the consumer will see it. So you create a brief marketing execution campaign where you create a lot of creatives around your brand messaging. Those then goes across to the market and you analyze, is there a awareness? Is it consumers are willing to go for your product? Are they familiar? Are they repeatedly purchasing? Are they considering? They are actually buying. They are aware, but are they actually buying your product? Are they purchasing your product? So that's the end goal where they are using the product or purchasing the product. After usage, is there is a good experience? Are they willing to repeat? The last part is the loyal part where they actually become loyalish for your product. They talk about your brand again and again and build word of mouth kind of a publicity for your brand. So that's the overall about the brand planning process. Now you will ask, hey Parag, you talk a lot about marketing, but where the medical roles comes into the picture. So a lot of functions which are actually involved in brand planning and strategic thinking. Medical affairs is one of the major function which is a pillar for formulating the brand strategy. And I'll explain why. You everybody might have seen the Bahubali uh, movie, right? It did not build over a day. but it built over the period of 3 years. Like how you will require a year long or more than a year long process before launching a brand to ensure a successful launch. Now, medical affairs plays a critical role in pre-launch insighting, where they catch up with HCPs, catch up with some of the market research firms to build the insighting, understand the patient journey, and find out what are the need gaps. The second part is they create the medical plan where they actually work across how the need fulfillment will look like in terms of launch execution. So there are some pre-launch execution plan and post-launch execution follow-up are also involved, and they thereby help to build the brand equity for a particular brand. Now, when it comes to building a brand, there are short-term goals, which is the first year of launch, where the normal organization think about, I want to register my brand into the mind of a consumer as brand A stands for X particular tumor types or beyond indication types. So that's overall 3 year strategic branding process looks like. And there are various tactics involved in terms of medical affairs. They conduct advisory board. They conduct patient advisory board to create inciting around the patient. They drive brand awareness, right? They build a local awareness by meeting the consumers pre-launch of the brand. One-on-one discussion. They understand the unmet needs or challenges from the HCPs. They also help in the market inciting. When you have launched in the market, they drive the experience. They connect with HCPs to build a lot of experience sharing meetings, a case to case discussion to drive the experience. They drive the advocacy building initiatives, which is could be kind of a real world experience or some other kind of a initiative which drive the confidence in users. Educational forums, they drive a lot of HOPMs or probably a medical MDT meetings to drive education around treatment and management. The last one is they work in the evidence building initiatives where they create consensus guideline and all other medical initiatives to expand the usage beyond users to non-users. Now, typically the function looks like this. So when it comes to a medical function, we define the core brand vision. What is my brand vision? I want to be a, a brand X to lead the complete care in tumor Y. So suppose if I talk about the infancy, I want to eliminate hepatocellular carcinoma as a death parameter for the HCC patient. So that could be your core vision as a brand. Then, as a medical team, you clearly define what are your define to the long-term brand vision. You drive urgency to act. You establish product as a new standard of care. You empower the patient. And as I have spoken on the previous slide, there are key strategic drivers, and around that there are various tactics involved. To find the unmet need, advisory board, patient advisory board, and one-on-one interaction can be used. To build the confidence, congresses, independent medical education, and experience forums are driven across. To build the evidence about your brand, phase 3, 4 trials, real world evidence are kind of built across. Now, when it comes to the last, which is the expansion stage, the ecosystem shaping initiative also medical team helps, which is in terms of diagnostic testing, disease awareness, and side effect management. So when the HCPs have a concern in terms of low diagnostic testing, they also support finding the unmet need and supporting with the diagnostic testing with the help of other core team, which is a diagnostic support team. Now, although everything has been decided onto this core brand vision, we then come into the strategy and how it looks like. So the broader strategy looks like strategic driven driver kind of 1A, B, C. And under those strategic driver, you then decide upon what are the activities. So what are the key congresses as a medical team we are going to participate pre-launch? What are the key medical events I am going to create in terms of launch of this brand? What could be the communication data I'm going to drive? So could be a study, could be a clinical trial readout happening across the global congresses. Am I going to disseminate that data to that particular medical fraternity? Scientific education in terms of what different kind of a event I'm going to drive pre and post launch of the brand are also considered here. In terms of insight gathering activity, one-on-one connect and market research kind of activities are considered here. Ecosystem shaping initiative, the events around the diagnostic testing, events around the awareness activities or disease awareness camps are driven across here. So although medical strategic levers, which are look on the top, this key template actually measures across what they are going to do over the course of pre and post launch of a particular brand. Now, the key activities are actually measured in terms of timelines. So as I've shown in the previous uh, slide, there are various activities which can be measured across a particular period of time to make commercial team being aware that this has been driven across at the right timeline. Medical team also identifies what is the unmet need and how much time it will require to particularly clear across those activities, and then they decide the timeline of activity and decide KPIs around it. So suppose I want to maximize the adoption in a particular kind of a tumor. You drive a phase 4 clinical trial where you say that I will drive a trial of phase 4 for a period of almost 1 year, and I will enroll around 100 patients. So your key KPIs become a phase 4 clinical trial for a phase of 1 year, enrolling 50 to 100 patients. So that's how the KPIs have been tracked and measured across when it comes to a function of medical affairs. Now, we all talk about the clinical data, right? But sometimes, as a medical affairs, we have to also understand are beyond data, are there any market barriers which are actually impacting the success of a brand? So this was one of the use example as a specific clinical trial. So it was the practice changing data. However, when it comes to India context, we saw not many of the patients are getting diagnosed at stage 3 non-small cell carcinoma. So as an organization, what we had to do is, although the data is superior, can be built across the early diagnosis of lung cancer, and that's where the role of other functional expert like the diagnostic experts comes into picture. So although medical identifies the unmet need in the patient journey, it takes or collaborate with the help of diagnostic team to drive the early diagnosis or early awareness about the non-small cell lung cancer. So a lot many patients can get diagnosed at the earlier stage, and by which they can actually benefit with the long-term outcome of the specific data. So it's not only data, but there are various market barriers which can also hinder your impact. Now, the next part is what are we going to talk about is can clinical data change a practice? Now, this is one of the example from our clinical trial Himalaya. If you could see, it's probably mentioned in the unresectable hepatocellular carcinoma. You see the p-value here in terms of progression-free survival is insignificant. The primary endpoint of the clinical trial was overall survival. And if you see the overall survival difference is significant, however, it's only 3 months. Now, as a medical and marketing, we have to sit together and understand how to deliver the benefit. If the PFS is insignificant, OS is a marginal benefit, can we communicate this benefit differently? Now, there came the overall long-term OS. We saw the curves of Kaplan-Meier separating and almost remaining parallel to the competition or the standard of care arm, where we could easily differentiate the long-term overall survival with the immunotherapy. And that's what practice changing which happened in terms of Himalaya clinical trial. So it's not about having the good data, it's about how you utilize the data for the clinician's benefit. And the role of medical affairs come there because they understand what is the unmet need in terms of patient journey and how we can probably position our clinical benefit to the unmet needs of patient. Moving to the next, and I think this is again, there are a lot many key opinion experts talk about a lot of social media or other forums, but it's not always enough. A lot of key opinion experts say that this is the best product what I could ever seen across in my clinical practice, but the clinical practice and the evidence actually builds across strong belief among the customer and not only the expert endorsement. So it's about all department coming together, plugging the gaps in the patient journey to enable a successful brand. We all work for a common objective. A success looks like, uh, have we changed the lives of the patient who are struggling for that 1 month of overall survival? Are we changing the practice of clinicians who are struggling to offer the best treatment offer for the patient? And can we make it accessible? So that's where the marketing, medical affairs, and all other department, which I have mentioned earlier, come together and serve the common purpose to deliver the best outcome for the patient. And that is what we believe in AstraZeneca, because it's what the science can do. That is it from my end, team. Thank you so much for being patient, listener. If you have any queries, we can definitely connect.
All right, perfect. Thank you so much, Parag, for joining us today, and thanks a lot for this excellent talk which you just delivered on brand planning and strategic thinking, highlighting the importance of medical affairs in terms of leading the things forward as well. Thanks a lot for that. I know we overshooted the time a bit, but I do have one question which upon which I'll need your inputs, Parag, and maybe yeah. So the question is, what type of clinical, market, or behavioral insights most often change your brand strategy? And how do you separate signal from noise? I think I'll request your views onto this particular question, Parag.
Yep, yep. So the basic insights when we map the patient journey is to understand what is the real problem. Now, the challenge comes across as there are noises around where you can probably say, as you have very rightly said, noises are too many smaller inputs, and signals are one thing which can actually change the entire treatment outcome for the patient. Now, I can give you a clinical example. What we could say is, uh, when we were launching one of the hematology product in chronic lymphocytic leukemia segment, we could see a lot of patients are not coming onto the treatment because it's a chronic lymphocytic leukemia. We went onto the drawing board and did a patient advisory board to understand what challenge that patients are not going onto the treatment change, life changing treatment. We understood that HCPs were only offering to the patient who are high risk and not to the mild to moderate risk patients. And HCPs were like, since your drug is expensive, I can only give to high risk because their outcomes are best. So by the use of phase 4 clinical trial data, what we had in India, we could actually demonstrate it's not only the high risk patients, but also mild to moderate risk patients. They have also benefited significantly so that it can be offered across to all population, which actually was the game changer when we started to listening to those signals through the patient advocacy board. And when we went across and we offered it across to the pan population, we could completely change the market outlook. So noise is too many short insights you get, and it's like an early gains for you. Signals are what you see long term and what long term signal success could look like. So if you would have been always restricted to the high risk patient, it would have been only 14% of chronic lymphocytic leukemia market. Whereas when we opened the market for all, it was total 50% of overall chronic lymphocytic leukemia market. So significant jump of 36% of patient population in the patient funnel. So that's the beauty of signal. If we keep on listening to noise, you will won't be able to focus on the signals.
All right. Thank you so much for that, Parag. Thanks a lot. Thank you so much once again for uh, being with us here today. Thanks a lot for that. With that, team, that brings us to the end of the day. And let me thank all our speakers of the day for some great and insightful talks, which I'm sure must be beneficial to you while you move forward with your journey. Stay tuned for day 3 of our Maestro year, which is scheduled on 28th of Feb 2026, because we do have some great topics of relevance already planned for the day. Thank you so much for the participation. Thank you so much for the patient listening. Feel free to reach out to me or any of the speakers via LinkedIn in case you have any concerns or the feedback which you may want to share. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you so much, Ashish.
Thank you, Ashish.
Thanks.